Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill, a fascinating and quite frankly massive matchup in the SEC, but also this feels like kind of a college football playoff game. LSU heading on the road to play Texas A&M, night game, Kyle Field. You're not going to see many better environments. And I think the fascinating storyline about this football game is there was a lot of people that left these two teams out for dead after week one of the college football season. You take a look at the top of the SEC heading into this matchup. You see two names undefeated: LSU, Texas A&M, and I think most importantly, both of these teams are getting better as 2024 goes on, and you can't say that for a lot of other teams across the SEC. Really excited to get into this one. Fascinating matchups. I think it starts with an elite offensive line for LSU, specifically in pass protection, versus one of the best pass rush defenses that we see in the country in Texas A&M. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, I think number one and most importantly, let it fly in the comment section. So many different ways that you can look at this football game and predict this football game, whether you're an LSU fan, a Texas A&M fan, whether you agree with the boys or disagree. Let it fly in the comment section. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, without further ado, let's get into this one. I think you got to start with this LSU offense going up against this Texas A&M defense. And where I want to start with this football game is we know how good LSU is in pass protection. Take a look at Texas A&M, the last three games on defense: against Mississippi State, 3 sacks, 11 tackles for loss; against Missouri, 6 sacks, 8 tackles for loss; and against Arkansas, 3 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. This front seven for Texas A&M has kind of took it up another notch. It's one of the best units in the country. How do you see this LSU offensive line going up against this Texas A&M defensive line playing out? Because the way I look at it, this has to be the biggest storyline in this football game.
And that's where I think Texas A&M runs into problems potentially with really good offensive lines, because they play that really, really aggressive style of defense. Their guys are flying in the gaps. They're trying to get upfield, make negative plays. And I look, LSU is just a really disciplined offensive line. Like, they do good job getting hats on hats. They pick up their assignments. They don't let a ton of run through. And I think you even saw, like, Mississippi State didn't do a ton on offense, but they were able to hit a couple big plays when they could get a crease. Notre Dame was able to kind of do that too. And those two teams really couldn't do it particularly consistently. So it's not like they were marching up and down or anything on Texas A&M. But that is kind of the cat-mouse game I feel like A&M plays. And when you play an offensive line that works like in unison, machine like the way LSU plays, and now with the fact that Caden Durham's kind of cranking that run game up where LSU can rely on it a little bit more, that to me, I kind of like where LSU might be at with that matchup.
Yeah, you might say it's like a wash. Like, I think this is one of the better defensive lines full of NFL guys versus one of the better offensive lines full of NFL guys. You kind of hit on a talking point that I think is going to be massive in this football game, and that is the emergence of Caden Durham at the running back position for LSU. You said it, like Texas A&M, because they want to play the run aggressively, they want to get upfield. Sometimes there are some creases for running backs to get after. Dill, the thing that makes you feel good if you're an LSU fan is that Caden Durham has been elite making people miss, bouncing off tackles. And when you get this kid in space, and I'm sure Texas A&M fans know of Caden Durham from his time at Duncanville, this kid has absolute burners, can hit the explosive play. Now
He's also done a really good job identifying the hole he should be hitting. I think that's what he's kind of done a little different than these other LSU running backs, I should say, is when there's a hole, he does do a good job cutting into that, making the right reads. That to me has been the most impressive part about his game. Like, yeah, you love the athleticism, but I think he's done a really good job of kind of playing with good vision, playing with patience. And when he gets his crease, he's done a good job hitting it, and he's got the acceleration to make you pay.
Now, the flip side of that is I think the Texas A&M linebackers have been playing some really good football over the last couple of weeks, right? Scooby Williams, I didn't think Scooby Williams was a good football player at all coming from Florida, and the Texas A&M fans know that. Torian York's been really good too, but Scooby Williams has been kind of like the pulse of this Texas A&M defense throughout the early parts of 2024.
Damian Sanford should get his flowers too. Another young guy who I think his game's way up. Like, from what they were doing in that Notre Dame team to what they're doing now, this linebacker core is way up. And again, you talk like that is the battle. I think it is allowing them to play a little bit more aggressive on the defensive line, because they really, since that Notre Dame game, haven't been picked on in the way I kind of thought would be possible for certain teams, especially a team like Mizzou.
when you want to get upfield like Texas A&M does, you need elite linebacker play that kind of erases that second level stuff because inevitably, like running backs are going to get to the second level. You need your linebackers fitting the run the right way. They've been doing that. I think that's what made Texas A&M's defense so good in 2023. You had some legit dudes at linebacker. I think you're seeing that kind of emerge for Texas A&M in 2024 as well. That's going to be a fact. But the thing is, like LSU doesn't really run the football that often. Like they throw the football 60% of the time. That's number 9 in the country. Are they going to stick to the run game a little bit more against a really good Texas A&M front seven? And how successful can it be? That's one storyline. Second storyline here, explosive plays. LSU's passing attack, we all know how dangerous it can be. Like you see the NFL draft and the mock drafts, and Garrett Nussmeier, for a lot of people, is one of the best quarterbacks that's going to be in the NFL draft. We know he can push it vertically down the field. You look at Texas A&M secondary, they're only giving up a 54% completion percentage. That's number 10 in the country. It's very, very good. That being said, 6.5 yards per pass, that's outside of the top 35. They do give up some explosive plays because of how aggressive they want to be with their cornerbacks and safeties. I think the biggest question mark in this matchup is, can Garrett Nussmeier connect vertically down the field? Because you go to that Arkansas game, as good as LSU was, Nuss wasn't great pushing the ball down the field. You feel like in this football game, he's going to have some opportunities to push the ball down the field, hit some of those explosive plays. Can he hit those plays against Texas A&M on the road? That's probably the matchup that you're looking at in this game.
Because that has been the recipe to move the ball on A&M. It's just like they're a hard team to drive on with like a 13-play drive because they're so good at creating the negatives.
Yeah.
Again, like you kind of need to be able, when you get your explosives, you got to hit them. Mississippi State did it, to their credit, decent job. They left a few on the table to make that kind of more hairy, if you will. I think LSU now, like for the most part, and again, barring last week's game, Garrett Nussmeier and this wide receiver core have been on. Kyron Lacy, I think his level's way up. His ability to win his one-on-one matchups, I think I've been very impressed with. But I will say that my second thing is probably who is that other guy I'd say in that LSU offense? Because I like Daniels, but like who's going to be the other guy to take the top off? Because right now it does feel like without Hilton being in the lineup, Kyron Lacy's kind of a lot of that burden's kind of falling on him. And I think A&M can probably deal with
Well,
one
and
of
I also think you kind of have an eraser for Texas. Like Will Lee has been playing like an all-conference cornerback, and so you're going to see a really good matchup between Kyron Lacy and Will Lee. That's kind of a good point. Who are the other pass catchers? Now they have other guys like Aaron Anderson or obviously Mason Taylor at tight end who can work that short intermediate stuff. Who's the guy that wins vertically down the field? Can it be CJ Daniels? That was what he was known for coming over from Liberty. He's going to need to have a massive football
I
game in
think
this
you just
one.
want more. I think you just want more from him if you're LSU. I think there is more you can get. It
100%
feels
there
like
is.
injuries have been a bit of an issue at times during the course this year. I don't know that we've seen him fully kind of locked and loaded, if you will. But I think that's an important matchup because, again, you look, A&M doesn't really leave two safeties back a whole lot. It feels like they like to go one-on-one on the outside, maybe a single high safety. So, again, I think if they can have two wide receivers really kind of rolling and have chances to hit big plays, that is, to me, the recipe. Just because I look and I like what LSU is doing up front and being able to pass pro, but like Emory Jones needs to play better against this A&M team because I don't think he's had a great couple of games. And he's a really, really good player, so I don't doubt that he can kind of get it back rolling. But these last two games, taking some penalties, giving up some sacks, those type of things, A&M really can hurt you because they get about 3 or 4 guys. Cassius Howell, obviously, Stewart, Scorton,
You
like
forgot. I
they're
was going to
loaded.
say, you better say Nick scored in that list.
I'm not going to miss him. He's obviously the best. But they just have so many ways to hurt you. So, again, I look, LSU is certainly really good in pass pro. It hasn't probably been great these past couple weeks, mainly because that right side with Emory Jones, I just think they need him to play. Like he's got to be
Yeah,
like
this will be a game where it's going to be hard because not only are you going up against some really really good pass rushers, but you're also playing on the road. It's going to be loud. It's going to be hard to hear the snap count. How does that kind of go into it as well? Dill, let's flip the side. We talked about LSU. They want to throw the football. You look at Texas A&M, kind of a stark difference. They run the football 62% of the time. That's 11th most in the country. The biggest story for Texas A&M on offense has been this offensive line. I don't think it was great against Mississippi State, but I think that, like, I'm not going to read too much into that game. I think that was a sleepy game coming off a big win in a bye week.
Because it
This
also wasn't like it wasn't that bad. It was just like it wasn't their best game, but like they didn't get dominated in that football game by any
no,
stretch.
they dominated the football game, but they gave up like 5 or 6 really bad plays, and that's kind of how that game
Yeah.
looked the way it did.
Especially
Um,
because don't you feel a
so
little bit right now like this game's going to be about LSU capitalizing on their opportunities on defense? Because Wigman, like again, you're seeing him play good, but he probably left 3 or 4 interceptions, like big
yeah,
time interceptable balls in that Mississippi State game, and they didn't convert them all. LSU, I think you look at how good Blake Baker is at playing with quarterbacks' eyes, being able to create havoc. And again, you're looking a little bit, frankly, back to the Mizzou tape. Like you think about what they did to Joe Milton in 2023. Like that's really good defensive coordinator football. That's baiting him into some bad throws. And Wigman, again, like he's playing good right now, but you still have seen those moments where he's just like not seeing things and he's making turnover worthy plays. I think if LSU can capitalize on the shots they get, if they get them, that's probably their answer to like
huge.
being really good on defense.
Huge part in this football game because you're absolutely right. You saw some really good throws from Connor Wigman. You also saw some throws that made you scratch your head. And can LSU capitalize on those throws and change the game off those throws? Massive. But I think if you're Texas A&M, you want to test this team in the front seven.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
we haven't really seen a team stick with the run game against LSU. We have question marks about their defensive line. I mean, Whit Weeks he's made it very hard to run the football against LSU. I mean, 23 run stops on the season. This kid is playing like the best linebacker in the country, but we haven't seen a ton of teams stick to the run game against LSU. If there's something Mike Elko's definitely going to do in this football game, it's going to stick to the run game. I mean, they've run the ball a lot, and they're running it in so many different ways, whether it's some power stuff, whether it's some outside zone, whether it's some pin and pull. They do it a lot of different ways. Can you stick to the run game and kind of control this game along the lines of scrimmage? What's the best way to take some pressure off your defense going up against a very good offense? Just control the ball and don't let that offense take the field. Can I don't know if I have an answer for this because I haven't
Well,
really
because we
seen
haven't seen LSU have to play a really elite, like offensive line physical rush style. Like again, Arkansas, like I like the way they run the ball, but they're not a particularly good offensive line. Not saying A&M's like LSU's offensive line necessarily, but they are playing really, really good football in the run. I think the running backs are playing really, really well, especially Moss. Like he's playing at a really high level. I do that is kind of my lingering question, frankly, about this LSU team because the secondary, they've really picked their level up where I feel really good about where they're at. And I don't love that matchup for
well,
A&M, frankly.
I think that's a really interesting matchup though because Texas A&M's wide receivers have been making some plays over the last couple weeks, but LSU secondary, I mean, these were two units that after week one we were like these units are not very good. Now they're both playing very good. Like I think there is some bones to that matchup. Like can a guy like Jade Walker, Noah Thomas make some plays in the air against these LSU defensive backs? They've both been making like both sides have been playing good the last couple weeks. I think that's another intriguing storyline too. Dill, let's get to the pick here. Texas A&M coming in 3-point favorites at home against LSU. Where are you going with this one?
I like LSU. And it starts with I think LSU can deal with them up front. That's probably the first thing. I don't think there's that many teams in the country that can. I love what LSU is doing. I think the fact that they're starting to run the ball, or at least showed that they can do it against a very good Arkansas front seven, I think has me very encouraged because I do think they need to be balanced. I don't love the idea of like throwing the ball 70% of the time in this
No,
football game because you just can't slow that pass rush down if you can't run it. So I'm very encouraged by Caden Durham. And I still have some lingering things with Wigman, and it really worries me some of those throws he's making. It killed him against that Notre Dame team that I think they're a better football team than. And he did it against Mississippi State. Again, if he plays like he did against Mizzou, I really like it Texas A&M in this game, but I have my lingering
yeah,
doubts. I like what LSU can do on the offensive side, so I'll take LSU, but this is a tough one.
this is the matchup where you don't want to bet against either team because both teams are playing some really good football heading into this one. Obviously undefeated in conference play. I'm going to go Texas A&M because you can have your concerns about Connor Wigman. I'm going to say my concerns are can LSU play the run for 4 quarters against a team that's going to run the football 60% of the time? I haven't seen it yet. And so I'm going to lean Texas A&M, especially at home. Like this is going to be such a rowdy environment. You saw LSU struggle with some pre-snap penalties against Arkansas on the road. Give me Texas A&M, the 12th man, giving me the win here. I don't even need the points. I'll take Texas A&M. Well, actually, they need to win by 3 for me to win here. Give me Texas A&M to cover the 3 points. We'll sign out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.